Hello everyone. Now welcome to this next series of life processes, and in this video we will be discussing human respiratory system and its working. Now let's start. Human respiratory system. Now what are the different organs? Because the human respiratory system is a well-defined system which involves the inhalation, exhalation, gaseous exchange, and finally taking this oxygen via blood to each and every cell for oxidation and for the release of energy. Now let's come to the organs of the respiratory system. Now in this diagram you can see the inhalation starts from the nostrils, that is the nose. We have got two holes, these are the two nostrils, and there is a partition between the two nostrils, and inside the nostrils, the inner lining, as you know, it is wet, moist. It contains mucus. It contains mucus, and it is also lined with small fine hair-like structures here. So when the air enters the nostrils, and here we will be discussing in the working of this respiratory system the function of the air and the mucus. Actually it moists the air and it filters the air, right? And now next what happens, the nostrils, they lead to the pharyngeal region. Now you see, you can swallow your saliva. Just swallow it right now. The saliva, which when it hits the, you can say, your neck region, that is the throat region, that region is the pharynx. Here sometimes infection or tonsils also takes place, and this is the pharyngeal region, and it is common for the wind passage of the wind also, and it is common for the passage of the food also. So when the food enters, beside you can say this is the windpipe, and behind the windpipe we have got the food pipe, that is esophagus. So when food is swallowed in the food pipe, this is the opening of the windpipe. This is known as glottis, and there is a very small flap-like structure. This is called epiglottis. So when we swallow the food, so this windpipe is tightly shut so that food is not entering the windpipe, right? So now coming back to the respiratory system only, this is the windpipe, and opening of the windpipe is known as glottis, and it is covered by a small flap-like structure, epiglottis. Now what next is, at the start of the windpipe, which is also known as the trachea. Trachea is the actual name, it is a windpipe, and at the start of the windpipe we have a voice box called larynx. It is got too small, you can say membrane-like structure across it. So when the wind is passed through it, it vibrates and sound is produced, and that is known as a larynx or voice box. Sometimes questions are asked, what is the other name of voice box? Larynx. What is the other name of trachea? That is a windpipe. Here important thing is to be noticed that this windpipe is provided with a ring-like structure, which we call it as cartilaginous rings. So these cartilaginous rings, it helps in keeping this windpipe constantly open, because when we exhale, if there are no cartilaginous rings, then this windpipe might collapse, and during inhalation it might not open, so it is dangerous for the body. So it's a safety mechanism, the presence of cartilaginous rings in the windpipe. This is where the question is important question asked. Why rings of cartilage are present in the trachea? It is just to prevent its collapsing when there is no air present in the windpipe, for might a fraction of a second, of course. Now this trachea divides into two branches, and each is known as the bronchus. This is also bronchus, and this is also bronchus, which enters into the corresponding lungs. This is the right lung, and this is the left lung, right? So now this bronchus, when it enters, it divides and redivides into many small branches called bronchioles. And each bronchiole, because it's just like a bunch of grapes, main bronchus, it divides and divides and divides and redivides, and ultimately every small bronchiole opens into a small balloon-like structure called alveolus. Singular is known as alveolus, plural is alveoli. And there are millions of alveoli present in each lungs. And it's an NCERT question also, how the human lungs are designed for its maximum and efficient gaseous exchange. As I told you, all the respiratory organs have got three characteristic features. First is a large surface area. So presence of the large number of alveoli in each lungs, this you can say makes the surface area of lungs very large, and moreover each alveoli is very thin walled, so that also helps in quick and efficient gaseous exchange. And moreover, when the artery enters, each alveoli is richly supplied or covered with very fine blood capillaries. So actually it is the alveoli which is actually the site of gaseous exchange, because within a few minutes now I'll be explaining the proper working of it. So this is again I'll repeat, nostrils, and here it is lined with mucus and the air. Then nostrils, it leads to the larynx, and the pharynx, and from pharynx it is the larynx and the voice box, and it leads to the trachea, that is the windpipe provided with the cartilaginous rings. And trachea divides into two, that is a bronchus, and each bronchus enters a corresponding lungs, and bronchus finally divide and redivide into small very fine branches called bronchioles, and each bronchiole open into small balloon-like structures called alveolus. But next is, we have got two lungs, and these lungs are enclosed in the chest cavity. Front is the ribs, right, and back side also the ribs, and front there is a bone called sternum, right, and the back side it is a vertebral column. So this whole chest cavity is enclosed, and below the chest cavity we have got the very fine thin muscular sheath called diaphragm. It is just like if you take an open bottle, you can take an open wide mouth bottle, this you can take it as a single lung and keep it open and just put the balloon sheet over it. Just fix the balloon over it. So when you will blow the air into it, this balloon will come like this. This balloon will be inflated like this. So this diaphragm is just behaving, it is a base of this chest cavity, right? It's a muscular sheath. So during inhalation and exhalation, this diaphragm contracts and expands, and its role we will be discussing in mechanism of breathing. Now next is what happens is this is a space between the lungs where heart is enclosed. After that, these lungs are covered by very thin two membrane called pleural membranes. And these two membranes encloses the cavity, and that cavity is known as pleural cavity, which is filled with a liquid fluid called pleural fluid. And this pleural fluid, along with the pleural membranes, it prevents the lungs against a mechanical shock or any, you can say, mechanical injury. So this was the structure of the human respiratory system, and now we will be discussing working of human respiratory system. Now, working of human respiratory system. Just to show you the reference, I've drawn this rough sketch of this human respiratory system again over here for you. Now see, what happens? As I told you, air enters the nostrils. आपके nose में enter करती है, और inside the nose, there we have, I told you, it is the lining of the nose contains the mucus, that is the liquid fluid, and the air. With the help of mucus and air, the air inside the nostrils gets filtered, warmed and moistened. You have to remember three things. When air enters the nose, three things happens to the air. First, it gets filtered with the help of air, and secondly, it gets warmed because lungs do not receive the cold air, and it gets moistened also because in the environment the air is dry. So you have to remember these three things happen inside the nostrils. And now from the nostrils, from nostrils it enters the pharyngeal region, pharynx, जो आपके गले का जो tonsils वाला area होता है, it enters the pharynx. Now from the pharynx it enters the trachea. This is the windpipe, trachea, and the opening of the trachea, it is known as the glottis. ये देखा आपने? This is the glottis. And when, remember, आप ये अभी भी कर सकते हो. you just swallow your saliva. तो जब आप swallow करोगे, at that moment you cannot breathe. Means while swallowing, this glottis, it shuts the trachea. This glottis, it shuts the trachea and the food is swallowed above it. So that this and the covering of this glottis is known as the epiglottis. This is epiglottis. This I have drawn it over here. Epiglottis, it is covered. It covers the glottis while swallowing. So now during breathing, it is not covered. Glottis is opened and the air enters the bronchus. This is the region bronchus because trachea divides into two. That is each is known as bronchi, which enters the lungs. Now this from here bronchus, air goes to the bronchioles. These are the bronchioles. Very small branching of this bronchus, they are the bronchioles, and from each bronchiole ends into a small balloon-like structures called alveoli. Plural is alveoli, singular is alveolus. And inside the alveoli, as I told you in previous videos also, these alveoli are very thin, like thin balloon-like structures surrounded by blood vessels. So inside the alveoli, there is air rich in oxygen, and outside the blood vessels, it contains carbon dioxide. So there is exchange of gases between the alveoli and the blood vessels. So inside the alveoli, there comes gaseous exchange between the blood capillaries and alveoli. So you can say in human respiratory system, the alveoli are the actual site of gaseous exchange. Now what here is, when air enters and reaches till alveoli, this whole process is known as inhalation. Inhalation. And after inhalation, there is gaseous exchange. And once there is gaseous exchange, now the air goes back from alveoli to bronchioles, then bronchioles to bronchus, and bronchus to trachea, and through the nostrils the carbon dioxide rich air is exhaled out. So that is exhalation. And now what next step is, we have to discuss the two things: mechanism of inhalation and exhalation with the help of ribs and how the lungs cavity expands. This I'll just explain after a few minutes. And next thing what we have to discuss is how the actual gaseous exchange takes place inside the alveoli. Now once the air which is rich in oxygen enters the alveolus, here I have drawn one alveolus. How does this gaseous exchange takes place in the alveoli or alveolus singular? Now as I told you, this alveoli, they are very thin walled. They are very thin walled. And because of this thin wall, it is easy for oxygen to diffuse out and to carbon dioxide to diffuse in. Now these blood capillaries, this is the blood brought by the various tissues of the body, which is carbon dioxide rich. Now alveoli, from here, from the nostrils till alveoli, we have received the air which is rich in oxygen. Now concentration of oxygen is more inside the alveoli, so it will diffuse into the blood. The oxygen will diffuse into the blood, and from there carbon dioxide will diffuse into the alveoli through this thin wall. So main thing is the process here, it is the diffusion. So with the help of diffusion, there is exchange of gases between the alveoli and the blood capillaries. So once there is complete exchange, now this carbon dioxide rich air, it goes from alveolus to the bronchiole, from bronchiole to bronchus, then from bronchus to the windpipe, and through the nostrils it is exhaled out, and that is exhalation. Now during this exchange of gases, some residual air retains inside the lungs. What I mean to say is, when all the gases, the whole, you can say, lungs, they squeeze out the carbon dioxide rich gas So what happens? Some air remains inside the lungs, and that air is known as a residual volume. So what is the importance of this residual volume? This volume when remains inside so during exhalation some air is there which is oxygen rich, and that gives us sufficient time for the alveolus and the blood capillaries to exchange the gas. So once the next inhalation, what happens to the residual volume? This carbon dioxide air again goes in the next cycle. So what you have to remember over here is, what is the residual volume? It is the air which remains during exhalation inside the lungs. And what is its importance? This gives sufficient time. It is just like when you have a can filled of oil. When you empty that can which is filled with oil, some oil remains inside the can. So what happens? And you keep on, you can say in the inverted position, that oil slowly and slowly drips out. Similarly, when the lungs, when the carbon dioxide air is squeezed out, so what happens? Some air remains inside the lungs, and when during exhale, the whole air is exhaled out, but some air is left. So during that time, complete exchange can further takes place, and this carbon dioxide will be expelled out during the next exhalation. So you have to see its importance also. One question here. And second is, what is the site of gaseous exchange? It is the alveoli. And what is how the alveoli are designed? They're thin-walled, one thing, and there are millions of alveoli present inside the lungs. That increases the surface area. And next is, it is richly supplied with blood vessels. So these 3 points, it makes the alveoli or eligible for the quick and efficient gaseous exchange. Now we are going to explain what is the mechanism of inhalation and exhalation using the muscles of the ribs. Now let us discuss the mechanism of breathing, that is how inhalation and exhalation takes place. Now inhalation, what is you can say involved in the mechanism of inhalation? As I told you earlier also, the lungs are enclosed inside the chest cavity, that is the ribs, right? So the ribs have, here I'll just show it to you, when the ribs, they have these are the ribs, and they have at their tangent some muscles, and these muscles are known as intercostal muscles. So don't go into detail. So with the help of these intercostal muscles, the chest cavity, the ribs, what happens? These are the ribs, they expand. They go outward and they go upward. So this increases the volume of the chest cavity and hence the lungs. And what happens to the diaphragm? This diaphragm, which is in the relaxed position, it also contracts and becomes straight. This is how the diaphragm becomes straight. So there is increase in the chest cavity. So volume of the lungs increases. Then air pressure is also reduced. When there is reduction in air pressure, so air from the outside, from the environment, it rushes inside the lungs. And this is what inhalation. Now after inhalation, when the air reaches the alveoli, and just now I have told you how the gaseous exchange takes place. And once this gaseous exchange takes place, now there is exhalation. One thing very important to note, you don't have to learn what is this exhalation. Once you understand this inhalation, just opposite events takes place in exhalation. How? Now see, here ribs expand outward and upward. Now in this exhalation, ribs contract inward and downward. So there is a reduction in the chest cavity, and the diaphragm also will be, it will not contract, now it will be relaxed, and it will sink inside, and it will come into its original position, that is, it will relax. So this reduces the cavity of the chest. Here the chest cavity expanded. Now here you can say the chest cavity reduced. So because of this reduction in the volume, there results in the air pressure is increased. When air pressure is increased, so the air rushes out as exhalation. So is it clear? I'll repeat. During inhalation, chest cavity expands, and during exhalation, chest cavity reduces, contracts. So during inhalation, there is increase in the volume and pressure, air pressure decreases. And here, due to the reduction in the volume, the air pressure increases. So due to the reduction in air pressure, air rushes in. Due to increase in the air pressure, air rushes out. So this is how inhalation and exhalation takes place with the help of intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. Now with this we come to the end of the topic, that is respiration under the life processes. And now stay tuned for the next videos for transportation. Thank you.